All right, all right. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to, or good afternoon, whatever time of day you're listening. Welcome to Black Men Let's Talk. My name is Dimitrius. Super excited today to have a brother that I grew up with around the way in Oak Park, California, Michael Benjamin, joining us today. Mike, what's happening, brother?
Hey, man, what's going on, D? Just happy to be here, man, and I thank y'all for having me. You know, this is big.
Yeah, man, glad to have you here, bro. Hey, Mike, before we jump right in, man, obviously I know you pretty well, but for anyone listening to the show, start off by tell me a little bit about yourself, what it was like growing up for you in Oak Park, what you're currently doing right now, and really what drew you to community service and working with young brothers.
Yeah. So as Demetrius said, my name is Michael Benjamin II, and born and raised in Oak Park, California. Um, uh, just attended and grew up around a strong, positive, progressive Black community. Um, Attended elementary school at Tahoe Elementary School, which they would bus a lot of the Oak Park kids to Tahoe Elementary School. We can get into that later. And then Cal Middle School, graduated from Sacramento High School, and then attended Sac City College for like a year, and then I ended up attending Howard University in Washington D.C. Um, and the growing up experience in Oak Park was really unique in this area because we really had this dense population of really um, well-rounded African Americans that were able to guide us. Um, I sat in a lot of community advocacy meetings as a kid. My mother was a chairwoman for Black Culture Day at the California State Fair. My auntie and my grandmother served on a commission inside of Oak Park called OPAC, or Oak Park PAC, which stands for Oak Park Action Committee. Um, my father, who was raised in Oak Park, he coached Oak Park Little League, right? And so advocacy just kind of, was just in my blood. That's what I was around a lot of meetings. My my father owned a all Black theater in Oak Park. He's a drama major from Sac State, and he ended up opening Sacramento Repertory Theater in 1978. So, and that theater would actually house excuse me, a lot of community conversations, if you will. So, yeah, that's what really drew me into what I do now. So currently in the current space that I am, I've just got a position with Sacramento City Unified School District. I'll be working in their safety department because we are reimagining what safety looks like at our Sacramento high schools, especially. So I'll be a part of that team. Our goal is to bring more community into our schools so we can guarantee safety. Um, we recently kind of decided to take away kind of the police presence at school. Um, it was costing a lot of money, and for what it costs, I don't think the effectiveness was there. And so, a better answer we think is to bring the community in to guarantee the safety. Right, the kids need to see people in their community who care about the community, but care about the campus, and having a little bit more input on the campus. So I'm doing that, and then I'm excited. Um, our community just opened a trade school called Highlands Charter School. It's on First and Broadway in the old Immaculate Conception School for 22 and up. And I'll be doing some GED. I'll be doing teaching GED skills at nighttime there. So it's something I really are grabbing our community kids and putting them in that type of thing. And then that's it, man. I currently am a general board member on the Oak Park Neighborhood Association, as well as RPT member for the Stockton Boulevard Project. And all of this stuff is just to, in my opinion, just to guarantee that our voice doesn't get overlooked and our history doesn't get erased. And so that's basically what I'm doing right now.
Yeah, I love that, my brother. Even though the time that we've spent together, we obviously the pandemic has really
Mhm.
caused us to lose touch with some of each other with each other as brothers and just community members. But I've learned some stuff about you just in that brief introduction that I didn't even know about you, man. And me and you, man, we could probably have a whole nother conversation about the police presence in schools. But um, I would love to reconnect at some point there. Maybe that's a talk for another discussion on this podcast. But um, Yep, police presence not only costs a lot of money, it costs a lot of people just their peace of mind as well.
Mm.
One thing I've had the opportunity, Mike, in my prior role with another youth organization, was talk with the law enforcement officers, and I learned that many of them, that's kind of it's kind of like the Oasis assignment. None of them really want to be on. They didn't join to be on campuses. I've heard them say things like it feels like it's babysitting. So when you don't want to be there, um, it really creates tense situations. So I'm super glad to hear, brother, that you part of that safety plan on school campuses and reimagining what safety, physical and mental safety, emotional safety looks like on campuses.
Yes.
So
Yes.
super happy to hear that. Bro, you mentioned a little bit about Oak Park Little League, and I know we talked a little bit pre-show. Thanks for clarifying, Michael Benjamin the second. I definitely want to give props to your dad. Definitely got to know him when I was a kid as well.
Yeah.
Your brother Marcus, younger brother Marcus,
Mm-hmm.
phenomenal baseball player. I had the opportunity to coach him. I think I was maybe only 10 years older than him. I was fresh out of the military, but yeah, tell me about your experience. We talked a little bit, but what playing Little League ball did for you and what you felt like it did for the community. So, can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, yeah. And so, and before I'm going to get into that, but what happened is that yeah, that picture is that's a unique picture. I had a kind of a rocky start to my college career, and I had to come back from DC, and I was uh I was asked to coach by a gentleman who I grew up under too, Robert Bobo Walton, who happens to be a Men of Honor uh, recipient as well. And he calls me Money. So he said, Money, you gonna coach with me this year? And I was kind of like, I don't know, I was just coaching my brother at that point, and he had me coaching. To be honest, uh, that's my first kind of journey into working with youth. And Bobo, I thank him all the time for that. And so now, this is what I do. But historically, Demetrius, what happened is that uh, our community was locked into baseball, just like a lot of Black communities were, because those were that and boxing were the only two things that we could do professionally and make a lot of money. So baseball was huge. With Jackie Robinson in 1942. Kind of breaking that color barrier, getting into Major League Baseball. So baseball's always been huge in our community. The two biggest names in Oak Park Little League and Oak Park Baseball are Harrison Crump Sr. and Norman Blackwell Sr. And so, our fathers grew up under them. So, my dad, played for, Mr. Crump and Mr. Blackwell. And so, there's other big names. So the big names in our community were attached to baseball. You had Francois Bullard, Mr. Frank Bullard. You had Walter Beatty, right? You had, just these names. All the I can remember everybody I kind of looked up to. Derek Lee, rest in peace, right? Drungo Hayeswood. That's a picture. This picture is unique. So my father played for Sac State. My dad played for Sac State. He actually started. And the story is that he played at Oak Park Little League. And then after you play at Oak Park Little League, because baseball has this huge history of racism, unfortunately, as well. So he played for Doc Oliver, which now he has a field named after him at Lamb Park. My dad actually played for Doc Oliver. He has all the newspaper clippings, and he would rip Doc Oliver's league up. When he got to high school, there was a gentleman at Sacramento High School. His name was David Hotel. And David Hotel, white man, he would tell you what you were playing. So you couldn't come and say, hey, listen, I'm a center fielder. I want to play center field. He said, nah, you're fast. You run track. Or no, you can't play football. And a lot of the spaces in baseball at Sacramento High School then were reserved for white males. And so my dad wasn't allowed to play baseball at Sac High. He was mad. He continued to play in other leagues, during high school. He then graduates from Sac High, goes to Sacramento City College, where he's told the same thing. Like, nah, we can't. Nope, you can't play here. So he graduates from Sacramento City College. Him and his best friend, Uncle Shelby, they're walking by. They're at Sac State now. They got their backpacks on. They're walking by baseball tryouts. They stop and look, and both of them decided they were better than 90% of the white guys out there. So the next day they went out, tried out. He said they made the first cut, second cut, and he said by the time the third cut came, it was clear, and he ended up playing at Sac State. I think he probably is the only person from Oak Park to play at Sac State, and he started. And so that's his story, but it all started at Oak Park Little League for him. So, and he finished his degree in drama and theater. And as I mentioned, he opened his theater later on. So baseball is huge for us in our community. It's and what happens is that a lot of times for situations where there might be single moms who want to have their sons around black men, where do you take them? You take them and sign them up, right, to play baseball. And that's where a lot of our connectedness comes to in our community. I mean, if you need to find somebody in Oak Park, just come to Little League on Saturday. You're gonna find them. And as we were talking earlier, it had to be 250. Had to be 250 people in the park on Saturdays when we were playing, man. And so it'd be 99 people behind the backstop, man, coaching you up, and it was pressure, but life is about that. It was positive pressure, in my opinion, because you wanted to get down, you wanted to perform, so you made sure that during the week for practice, you were locked into practice, man, because you want on that Saturday, that was the stage. So that's what it was for me, man.
Yeah, man, I appreciate you sharing that, man. So many gems in that, Michael. To me, just the fascination knowing that there was a period, boxing, baseball, basketball, and football, and that period of time, was up until maybe even 50 years ago, where white people actually thought that black people were inferior athletically and intellectually. Now you fast forward to today, at least athletically, it's just the opposite. It's fascinating to think there was a point that we think that black men couldn't compete with white men on the athletic field. And now we're trying to shift that narrative to also in academia, in the classroom, those same kind of stereotypes hold true. One of the things you mentioned, I definitely want to touch on is that was a place where many of us young brothers found our first role models. For many societal reasons. Obviously, many of us grew up a single parent household with a mom. Man, you mentioned some names, Norman Blackwell, Frank Crump. Interesting story. I play in a senior softball league. It feels like we age him like 10 years every 5 years, man. I play in a senior softball league with Norman Blackwell Sr. and Juan Blackwell. I saw him on the team a couple of weeks ago, and we got to talk about Oak Park Little League and how that seemed like, well, that was a generation or two ago, and here we are, still at it.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Yeah, that's great, man. That's the place we found our first role models. I actually played for my dad, which was a challenge in and of itself. And I see a lot of young brothers, getting into sports or coaching their sons or coaching their daughters even. One thing I learned early on, Mike, and it was from my own experience. I was fortunate enough to have an opportunity to coach my daughter. She played. She was a phenomenal softball player. She played on an all-star team in Rockland. My assistant coach, she had a player on the team also. And I had never heard this till my assistant coach brought it up, but she's like, you know what? You're going to always be trying to coach your daughter in the car, here, at home, and they really don't want to hear it. So how about we make a rule during the game? I don't talk to my daughter. You talk to her or coach her, and you don't talk to your daughter. And Mike, we did that like one game. And I remember my daughter saying she kind of missed hearing my voice and me coming out to talk to her, but it also made her relax knowing that Tammy would come out and talk to her because she felt the pressure. So I know you played for my dad. You probably had a slightly different experience than I did playing with my dad.
Yeah. I think I played for both our dads. So for 2 years. So your dad and my dad were the manager and coach for my last 2 years, my 11 and 12-year-old years. And so let me say this, it's tough, right? It's tough because inside of baseball and inside of coaching, your father and my father have to look at direct mirrors of them, right? And so it might not be a baseball lesson that they're teaching. It might be a life lesson. And that's why it comes off harder for me and you, right? That's why our parents coach us harder, because it's like, no, no, stay down on this grounder, right? My dad had a cup of tea in professional baseball. So this guy, I still have guys to this day come up like, man, your dad used to throw so hard to us and hit so hard to us. And the analogy my dad would use, he'd be like, that's how life comes at you fast. And so and one thing that my dad hammered home a lot was fundamentals. But here's what happens is that I also have those same gentlemen now tell me, like, yo, we appreciate your dad being there, and that's the same thing with your dad. So I understand the coaching up is hard. I had to develop a rule with my son, which was we only got, because I'm a big yeller, so I'm in the stands yelling, and I'm not yelling anything about the game or the strategy. I'm yelling about effort, right? So if I don't see the effort, that's where I'm yelling. And I had to develop a rule, and my rule is we only get, first of all, I have to sit in the top of the stands. That's the first thing. That's the first rule of my son. He's like, yo, you just got to stay away from the bench because you're too loud. Just sit up in the stands. And the second thing is we only get 5 minutes to talk about the game after the game. So, and the determination of when the 5 minutes happens, I leave up to him. So oddly enough, it might be quiet after a loss on the way home. We get something to eat, whatever. But then it would pop up and he'd say, hey, either I could have did better, or what'd you think about this, or whatever it was. But you have to give that reprieve. But I think what happens is that when you and I, in the era we played, we're civil rights babies, right? So our parents are coming out of the civil rights movement, which was tough, and so they really were dogmatic on us about how things should be done, and this is why you got to do this. And my dad was huge on stay down on the ball. And I'm like, I'm trying to stay down on the ball, but it's coming at 100 miles an hour. Like, I'm only 9, so like, come on, man. But I now can see that, right? At their age now, I see kind of why they were the way they were. It just didn't come with the proper, understanding or explanation, right, as to why they were coaching us the way they were. But nonetheless, what I'll say to you is that I am in great appreciation. I don't have the words for them taking the day out of their time. I mean, the time out of their day and their weekends, and still coming out and coaching us, because you and I both know in our neighborhood, it's a lot of young men who didn't have fathers. So your dad and my dad coming out and coaching, man, and coaching together, I think it was huge. So it was just hard on me and you, but.
Yeah, man, Mike, I love that perspective, man. And yeah, that's very interesting. And I think there's a lot of other things that play into that as well, which we don't have time, obviously, to get into on this show, but you and I have spoken that
Yeah.
quite a bit in the past. With that perspective also probably comes from, one of us continuing over the past 30 or 40 years to have a relationship with our dad.
Yeah.
And having an opportunity to hear some of those things that I was trying to teach you when you were younger, and one of us probably not, and holding a little bit of that animosity, anger, bitterness, which I think plays a huge part in that too. But man, I love that perspective. And I love that 5-minute rule you and your son got.
Yeah. It's 5 minutes, man, because if not, then it'll be a, so 5 minutes, that's it. We're done. We put the timer on and everything. It's like,
yeah.
So yeah.
So Mike, we both have had the opportunity to, start families and see our young kids grow. Interested to hear from you on what are your hopes and concerns long term for your family, your community, and maybe even our country as your kids start to grow into adulthood. What are, as a Black father, what are your hopes and concerns?
My hopes are that the hope is that you instill in your young person the want and need, what I'm saying, to continue to do what's right. We have this hope that things will kind of shift, right? Because what happens is that we're seeing more of a media influence on kind of behaviors, right? And what we know as African Americans and people of color is that United States is very good at creating these social constructs, right, and boxes that you can fit in. And for us, they're not positive boxes. So one thing I do is when I work with the youth, I have a whole workshop I do on identity, right? Because identity is huge, especially in our community, right? So I have a formula, which is your influence plus your impact equals your identity. So, you know, raising mine, that's what I told them. You know what I'm saying? It's like, look, your influence. How are you influencing things? Is it positive? Is it negative? What is the impact of that influence? Add that all up, and that's what your identity is going to be. And so, to just kind of create those touch points, right? Is and I'm hoping that they'll continue to develop your identity, because it's a ever growing thing. And I think what happens is that there's a kind of a psychological concept which is called arrested development. And what happens is that a lot of people, their development and who they become, who they're going to become, and who they are, it gets arrested at a certain age. And so that's why you see these 45 and 50-year-old cats running around still acting 17 and 25. Their development got arrested at that age, right? And there's different, kind of there's different things that cause that. You know what I'm saying? A lot of times in our community, it's incarceration. It could be drugs. It could be gangs. It could be, and so people apex, right? They come to kind of or they feel like they come to the top of where they're supposed to be in life, and they stay there. They stay there. So it depends on what that experience is. Where did this person peak in terms of, popularity, development, who they are. That's kind of where the development gets arrested. I think for people like myself and people like you, we understand that, we're going to keep growing, right? And when you keep growing, you continue to have that hope, And so I have a theory, which is you're defined by the last big thing you do. So look at what that last big thing is, right? So, and that's what you're defined by. And so in terms of talking about hope and keep trying to reach and continue to do positive, good, big things. And then what happens is that your development will then reflect that, and that'll give off what you do. Yeah. So
Yeah, love that, brother. Love that. I was never familiar with that social construct that you brought up, arrested development.
yeah.
Makes perfect sense. I've always known that whole concept, and how we sometimes our growth is stunted, but never was aware that there was actually a phrase put to that.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of us, it's almost like a history and a music lesson here. I remember the musical group,
Yeah.
Arrested
The rest
Development. And
development. Yeah. Yeah.
so now it's interesting to know that that's probably where the name of that group is. They were a very socially conscious
Mm-hmm.
and aware musical group. So
Yeah.
yeah, man, that's good stuff. It's good stuff. Hey, Mike, a lot has happened the past um, 5 or 10 years in this country that a lot of people would say has taken us backwards. Some would probably argue that, yeah, we didn't really take us backwards. It was just some stuff that was uncovered that many of us had our head in the sand. But to what extent, whether it's the last two presidential elections, whether it's the Me Too movement, or whether it's the Black Lives Matter movement and all the things that led up to just that whole summer or year of 2020, 2021, to what extent have those recent events impacted your life and how you move in this world today?
Yeah. That's I think, you know, um, it's funny because when you look at kind of the historical landscape, you're really going to have to probably have a history book that just covers 2020 and 2021, right? So much happened. But when you look at the landscape of everything, I'm like super. I look at how things affect me and my people, straight up. I do that first, right? I know I'm an American, but I look at, I'm saying, how it affects Black Americans first and foremost. And everything you mentioned, when you look at the outcomes of everything, we we didn't gain anything, right? We didn't gain anything. If you look at, Black Lives Matter, for example, what did we gain, right? What did we really gain? There's no legislation that they created. There's no first time home buyers program. I don't even see them doing free breakfast, free food, uh, any type of anything, right? And so again, America is masters at taking your culture and selling it back to you, right? And so, you look at a movement like that, and then you ask yourself, okay, well, at the end of this, right? Because you did use our name at the front of this, right? And if Black Lives Matter, you know, um, where's where's the hard stuff? Where's the stuff that's gonna help us advance, as you were talking about with hope? Where's the hope that came out of this movement? And you can't really find that. Same thing, people are quick to put us in the front of movements, right? But in the back of the results. So it's like, at the same time, Black people have to be careful attaching themselves to certain things, right? These movements, without first talking about what the outcomes are going to be for us and our people. Other people don't do that. They don't Me Too and Black Lives Matter. And, the fact that you have to have a movement called Black Lives Matter lets you know that this country believes that Black lives don't matter. Um, this presidential election was hilarious because you really got to see what the framers of the Constitution really look like. That's what Donald Trump reminds you of, right? This is what we really, really, really look like. This is what the framers. This is, if you ever wanted a picture of John Hancock and all the. This is the guy. He comes from a place of privilege. Hasn't had to work. None of that. So what happens is that it's always going to be hard for people like that to help poor people from a place of privilege. It's almost impossible. And so for anybody looking for a hand from him, it's just ain't gonna happen. And what I think has happened is that it's stirred up, old thought processes, from white people. It stirred it up, right? It brought it back. They were able to go to those, you know, those old photo albums of grandpop and grandma and everybody else who was, grown up in that, Jim Crow era, right? And they were able to see that this is really real. And so I think the difference now is that now a lot of the racism, most of the racism is captured on camera now. So people are being presented right in front of them with the actual facts. Like, look, here it is. Like it's not even the 1940s and 50s no more. This is 2022, and racism is still alive. Matter of fact, I might argue that it might be even more alive now. So I think in terms of how I move outside of that now is that you're a lot of people are more informed. And so now, D, what I'm doing is I'm challenging Black people on the fact that now that you are more informed, what are we going to do about it? Right? You can't no more, before, it was kind of stories that we heard, right? Like, oh, my grandparents and my aunties would tell me stories about, racism in the South and things of that. Now you get to really see it. So now the question becomes, what are you going to do about it? And so that's kind of how I approach it now, right? I'm a lot more confident because everybody, it's a click of a button and you can see, how this racism is unfolding, right? And it is what it is. It's always been here. It's always been here. It's just now you can see it, And so, now's the time for us to galvanize. Now that we know the threat exists, to galvanize, come together, build our own, create for our own, and be able to stand on our own too. So, yeah.
Yeah, I love that, man. That's real talk. That's real talk. I think one of the things that you mentioned, so much of that resonates with me. When we talk about, I think social media has just made it easier for everyone to post their feelings on being an activist online. They post something on Facebook or Twitter. pray for this organization, or we need to do this, or stop this, or we need to stop Trump or do this, and then they put their phone down and go on about their day.
Mm-hmm.
You haven't really done anything but shared an opinion. Where's the action behind that? And I think a lot of people, not that we shouldn't protest for legislation and change and all the things that make this world unjust. But I think you and I have talked about this in the past. I think we're in agreement where that's not where you should be spending most of your time. Because I think we have to understand that if nothing else, even our so-called progressive friends, they may say something in support of us. At the end of the day, they go home to a community that's 90 to 95% white.
Right.
Even though they see themselves as progressive. The way they move, the schools they send their kids to aren't exactly diverse. So it really just makes them look good. And I think one of the things that we've learned slowly, many of us have already known this, some have just learning this, but there are some great people in this world who are not Black, who want this world to be more just towards Black people. But really, at the end of the day, white people don't wake up every morning thinking about how to make the world better for Black people.
Nope.
They don't. That's something that we have to do ourselves.
Yep.
If you're in a place of privilege, why would you not want your kids to have that same privilege when you grow up? You're not going to make the things better for everyone else. I think that's one of the things that I've seen as well.
Yeah, and so I don't allow white people to use the word ally, right? Because ally is someone who can they want to help you get free, right? Because they feel that bondage is not fair, and you're not beating humanity, this, that, and the other. But when you get free, then they're like, you can't live around me. But I don't agree in how you were being treated. You need a co-conspirator, right? Co-conspirator is somebody who's willing to get in just as much trouble as you. You know what I mean? That's those are the real. If you want to help us outside of being Black, that's what we need. We don't need an ally, because the ally is somebody who can walk away from the movement at any time, right? And leave you continue to hold the bag, right? So it's everything but the struggle. People like to be attached to everything but the struggle of being Black. So they want to be attached to the music and the food and it's like you said, right? So you get to come into the community, help out, for a little bit, and then you get to drive back to wherever it is, you really live. And then you also get to tell those white people about what you did, right? Oh, I work in the inner city with these kids, and it's almost like a resume builder sometimes. So I have a problem with that. It's like, if you're really going to be down, you really want to help, then you need to stay in this. So I don't do the ally talk. You know what I'm saying? I do that. If you're really down and you really want to get in trouble, because that's what it is. We're being, they don't know what it's like to be vilified just for the color of your skin. Like, that's tough, right? Like you're being, you're being made a suspect for waking up. I just woke up this morning, right? Walked out my door, and when you don't know those feelings, it's kind of hard to, explain, So yeah, so I agree with you, D. Like, you can't, we can't allow that as a people, right? Like, when you go to help other communities, they put you through the ringer, right? They want to know what you're there for. They want to know the whole 9 and 10, and sometimes Black people are so quick to allow others to latch on and become a part of the movement. And what happens is they then take your movement over, right? And then you don't own it anymore. And I think that a really good example of that is this Black Lives Matter. They raised insane amounts of money, right? And one of the biggest problems we suffer with is displacement, gentrification, right? So where's the first time home buyers program, right? With all the money you raise, where's bill assistance? Where's anything? But this movement on the front end has Black Lives Matter, right? So where did we benefit as a people? And a lot of the people on the back end of this, on the part that started this, don't look like us. So
Yeah, I love that, my brother. That's kind of one of the reasons why I moved around to a couple of different organizations, youth serving organizations, trying to find that home. I've just learned that.
Yeah.
you know, a lot of people who aren't black want to, as you said, be part of the movement. What I like to say is they want to be the hero in the story. You know, look, I joined this organization and I'm helping all these young underprivileged kids, and I use those words: underprivileged, underserved. Um, and I've learned that many of them, the reason why they join, actually, when you start talking to someone, you find out just from hearing from them, they start talking about what it's done for them. It's helped realize their privilege.
Right,
It's helped them understand that they are fortunate. And I just want to interrupt them and say, this ain't got nothing to do with you. I didn't
right,
want to hear about what it's done for you.
right.
What has this done for the community? But yeah, I think they often want to play the hero. Um, and they may even be threatened by if black people can lift themselves up by themselves, as they like to say, um, that poses a threat
Hmm. Hmm.
to them. So
Hmm.
yeah, I've learned that, I've seen that firsthand as well.
Yeah, and let me say this: you know, don't feel any type of way for, you know, finding what's best for you. So you've been with these organizations, but you had to find something different. You had My father taught me, he said, man, never get comfortable on the plantation. Ever. So what happens is at the end of the day, D, is that's what it is. Because I do, you know, we work in the same vein. So it's like we do the same thing. And what happens is you don't find out certain things until you really have to unearth and dig. And then once that happens, you're like, oh yeah, nah, no. We don't get down like that. Like, and I gotta go. You know what I'm saying? Fundamentally, because one thing you and I realize, and we talked about this before, is that, you know, for whatever it's worth, you know what I'm saying? That Stone last name, that Benjamin last name is worth something. And I don't want to be attached to something that's not what it is that it says it is, right? Because you and I have to answer questions to our community, right? Our black community, they're gonna come to Dimitrius Stone and Mike B and be like, hey, what's up with this? And we have to be able to stand on principle and say, yeah, I'm supporting this, or yeah, I'm not supporting this, right? They look to us to be able to kind of give them the information that they might be searching for in terms of organizations that come into our community. Um, and so, yeah, man, you know, I've watched you, you know, I admire you, you know, I have to come to you sometimes for some mentorship. And so my expectation is that, yeah, you know, I mean, you've talked about some organizations like, yo, look, I'm not tapping in with that. I've had to call you, you've had to call me like, yo, what's up with this? And we've had to have those discussions because at the end of the day, the safety of our people, you know, is what we put first. And so, yeah, man, that's what it is.
I love that, bro. Yeah, appreciate those kind words. You're right. You won't know until you go.
Right,
You know,
right.
I have these feelings about this organization, but you know, this is an opportunity for
Yeah,
me. Let me check this out. You go, you check it out. You're like, oh yeah, let me go ahead and get up out of here. So
yeah.
this
No, you got to
this is a
bounce,
good
man.
learning experience.
No, you got to bounce, and you know, you and I talked about this too, and I talked about this with Sister Rowe too. It's really ironic that a lot of the programs that are quote unquote to benefit us are ran by white people. So you just go, wait a minute, created and ran by white people, you know, and that's not to say that, you know, like you said, you know, I'm not kind of whatever, but at the same time, it's like you have people in the community like myself and yourself who can run these programs. Like we can run, we the self sufficiency is there. Um, you know, we have to be allowed to have the allotted space, time, and resources to get this stuff up and running, and we can do it ourselves. But a bigger point, D, is that a lot of them don't want to see us do well because then what does that do for their position? Right. So it's a, you know, it's one of those things where it's kind of like you have to really weigh it out, you know. So yeah.
Yeah, that's real talk. Real talk. Hey, Mike, want to spend the last few minutes, man? Let's talk about what can black men do. Let's just talk specific to our community of Sacramento. What are some things black men can do, or what are some things that brothers in this community are currently doing to make our communities thrive? So, you know, we talked about, you know, having people who are quote unquote allies for Black people, but what are some things that brothers can do, or that they're currently doing, that are allowing us to sort of take the reins and provide that support guidance for other young men and young women of color in our communities?
Yeah. So I think the first thing we have to do, we have to continue to do is to continue to have these conversations, right? Um, we can never let it table itself. Like we got to continue to have these conversations. Another thing too that we can do, brothers and sisters in the area, is to support. Right? There's there's brothers out there who are doing the work. They might need support. There's a picture that I sent Sister Rowe of a young gentleman. Me and my brother are on either sides of him. His name is Julius Douglas. Uh, he's also a man of honor, and he's from Oak Park. He has a nonprofit called Seize the Moment. And what I've done is I've supported him. There he is. Yep, right. I've supported him. He's younger. He's younger than us, but he has the energy, right? He has the ears of the youngsters that we're trying to reach. And so, as opposed to me being some older, bitter black man, like I've really uh, been able to just listen to him. He is brilliant. He's smart. He's hardworking. His heart's in the right place. He's helping these kids, right? And so what I've done is I've supported him. That's what it is. It's support, right? Um, Another thing from a community standpoint is we got to stop being scared. We got to stop being scared. I have to give these youngsters a message like, yo, I am not going to be scared, right? And what I'm not scared of the social construct that they're living inside of, right? Because what makes you a man and what makes you stand up and what makes you tough is not what you look like. So I have a saying in Oak Park right now, which is the P is in you, not on you, because we've gotten to a place in our neighborhood, in our community, where cats are wearing Oak Park like it's a hat or a chain. Nah. The P is in you. The P is Mr. Blackwell. P is Mr. Crump. P is Mr. Beatty. The P is Mr. Bullard, right? The P is Miss Nash. The P is the Stone family, the Benjamin family. The Pitts. That's the P. That's inside you. Oh man, that's a picture of you talk about a cat who, man, Dr. Akasanya Cambone, right? And this is an example of the P being in you, being able to grow up under him, since I was a baby, and my shirt says every child deserves a black teacher. So that's what it is. It's getting involved. It's doing stuff like what me and you did, coaching, right? We coached. We didn't only play at Oak Park Little League. We went back and coached. It meant that much to us that we went back and coached. And so this is what we have to start doing. We have to start creating a visibility from a black man's perspective, a good black man's perspective. Another thing too is that we have to start community fathering, right? We got into, I don't know where black people got into this thing of don't say nothing to my child and this, that, and the other. And it's like, nah, man, we got to bring that back, bro. We got to bring that community fathering back, right? And we have to take a stance on certain things that we don't want to see in our community, right? And that's what we got to do. We got to come up with a set of standards that we want to govern our community by, and that has to come from us. And unfortunately, a lot of the standards that we're going to put into place, it might eliminate a lot of black people, right? And that's just what it is. That's just the real. So, yeah.
Yeah, I love that, man. I love that. The fear is big time. Just the fear. I love that shot right there.
Yeah, man. It's in the middle of 35th, and the shirt says, "Please don't feed the gentrifiers." But our landscape in our community, and that's another thing I want brothers and sisters to understand is that these people coming back, taking communities, man, just whole communities, just snatching them. And so what happens is, they literally are taking buildings and just erasing the name off of it, putting another name on it, right? That's how much they think about you. So in terms of capturing and keeping culture, right, we have to start building community, or else they're going to give you your community, and that's what's happening. And so that was this anti-gentrification picture for an article I did for the Observer. So
Yeah, I love that. You're right. It's overcoming that fear. It's understanding the skills that we have to learn to really take our communities back. Whether that's we need more accountants, lawyers, attorneys, all those things, all those positions, all those jobs that make a community work, and those jobs and titles that work hand in hand to change communities, are the job that we should be really striving to, or understanding what makes up a community. What are professions that we need to look into to become self-sustainable?
Yeah, no, dude, that's real, man. And my message is we got enough rappers. We got plenty of rappers, We got more than enough rappers.
More than enough.
No, we don't need what we don't need not one more rapper. Parents, I'm talking to y'all. We don't need one more rapper. Like
Yeah, I'm with you, man. It's that courage to be something different.
hmm
It's like you say, yeah, I could be a rapper. That's easy, but yeah, you said it enough. I don't need to repeat it. But
yeah,
we got
yeah,
plenty of entertainers and athletes, which are great to provide that generational wealth for your family. But
yes,
the odds of succeeding in that, there are
yes.
some other things that are so much easier that have such a bigger impact on building community.
Yeah, no, it's true, and that's why Highlands Charter School is an exciting kind of addition to our neighborhood. The trades and the trade schools are attached to unions. Um, so we need some electricians and some plumbers and some some bricklayers and tile people to do that stuff. So then we can create almost a black directory of services, right? This is how other communities get us, man. I think in the Latino community here in Sacramento, I think the dollar rotates, I think 24 times now. It wasn't 18, it's 24 times now. So they're keeping that money in their community. Same with the Asian community, right? So I work with the Hmong, and they have a little Saigon on Florida and 65th, and the money rotates in there. They have everything inside that plaza, from travel agencies to barbershops and we have to start building. It's an old conversation. I'm at the point now where you and I have sat down. We have to really just start to take action, and and we can do it. We're gonna do it. So
Yeah, I think we'll continue. I'm looking forward to leading that effort as well. Um, Mike, man, brother, it's always a pleasure talking to you, man.
hey,
And looking at the screen for those that are watching the stream, I have this little dream of mine. I'll be living in the mountains in a cabin somewhere, and that's sort of I set my background. But I'm realizing that the context that we're in, I need to have something that's a little more of a learning and community building for my background. So for those that are watching, yeah, we're gonna take that background off and get more of a community involvement background for my screen next time.
oh yeah, bro. 'Cause we need
But
you, man. We need you, man. You're a general, man. You're lieutenant, sergeant. You just the way. And I'd have to tell you that because my brother says the same thing. Yeah, we have pops, but we look at people closer to our age who we admire, and so you're one of those cats, man. And so we definitely need you to and do the mountain thing, man. Hey, listen, sometimes I want to get away too, but man, at the same time, man, just make sure we can at least call you. You come back to the hood, man. We need you, man.
yeah,
But yeah,
that's a retirement goal.
I know. But no, but in all seriousness, man, we are at a phase where what that 2021 too is. I think that it showed a lot of black people too that you can kind of a lot of brothers and sisters started businesses and they didn't need that crutch of a job, right? They were like, yo, let me start. I'm good at something. Let me see what that is. Let me see how I can make that pay, because that's what living life is, making your passion pay, right? That's what we all want to do is whatever we're passionate about. We want to see how we can make that sustainable to where we can live on that. And I think that's a good thing, but we now have to bring all those together and see how we can create. Me and my brother just joined All Black Bank, man. We was just like, you know what? Let's just jump off the cliff. Uh, yep, Greenwood Bank for all those interested. And I think it's named after the Greenwood Archer and Pine community in Tulsa. And actually, that's for a whole nother show. But that's how my family got to Oak Park. My grandmother was born in Tulsa, and so after the bombings, they had to move, and they ended up moving to Fresno, and then my grandmother moved to Sacramento. But just things like that. D, start seeking out. Is there a black bank? Is a black plumber in the area? Black electrician? You need something done at the house, mechanics, whatever it is. Start just feeding our community, right? So we can see, the sustainability.
Yeah, and with the internet and social media, there is and online banking. There's really no reason, myself included, for none of us to not have some account, checking account, money market account, savings account, a retirement vehicle on with a black owned bank.
Yeah.
You can do that online. So,
Yeah.
Mike, brother, every time I talk to you, man, I have a whole lot more hope. I rarely have conversations with brothers that I have with you. And every time we chat, man, I just feel so much, I feel so much smarter and just the discussions we have. So, bro, I appreciate you, man.
No, I appreciate you. Thank you. I want to thank Earth Mama Healing,
Yep.
Yolanda Wilkins, man. Thank you so much for providing this platform. We got Men of Honor coming up. I believe this will be I don't want the 11th. I believe I don't want to misquote. If all of you that don't know is the sister and a brother named Keon Johnson that came through to honor men from the community who are doing work. I myself am a Men of Honor recipient, and I always tell Rolanda it's the best award I ever got. My father as well is a Men of Honor recipient. Dimitrius Stone is a Man of Honor, and so it means a whole lot. We love the community support. We want to make this to where it's self-standing, right? We don't want to go. We want to be able to do this honor and have it housed inside of us to where we can do this ourselves. It's time for brothers to step up, and so we're gearing up for that. I believe December 17th, 2022. Look out for that. Man of Honor, you know, it just feels real good. So, yeah.
Appreciate that plug. Appreciate talking to you, Mike. And man, let's definitely catch up over some coffee or lunch sometime, brother. So
we will, man. And we have to continue to start these conversations more. And I'm gonna be reaching out to sit down with you a lot more, man. I really am.
Let's do that, brother. Love you, man.
Love you too, man.
Take care, bro.
Peace.